The following program contains names, places, and events that have been anonymized or fictionalized for the purposes of protection and safety. The following program is provided for entertainment purposes only, and any commentary from the hosts are strictly conjecture and should not be held as making any definitive statements about the truth or identity of any particular individuals or circumstances. If you or a loved one are involved in an abusive relationship, please call the National Domestic Violence Hotline at 1-800-799-7233 for support.
I used to hate Mondays, but I love Mondays. Hi, Hannah.
It's Dating Detectives Day. Hello.
We have an interesting episode for you guys today.
It's a little different than usual. We are collaborating with the Nobody Should Believe Me podcast. So maybe some of you already know about it. If you don't know about it, you got to know about it, because if you like us, you'll like them.
How genius is that title? Like, Nobody Should Believe Me. That makes me want to listen immediately.
Immediately. And like, that's every story we tell. Everybody's like, this is so bonkers. Nobody should.
Like, there's no way.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So we have a guest who's going to tell us a dogfish story, but it also intersects with what Nobody Should Believe Me talks about, which is Munchausen's and Munchausen by proxy. So the host of that podcast, Andrea Dunlop, is also going to co-host with us. And she's so great. She's so sweet and so knowledgeable. She's a novelist.
So cool, you guys. Yeah.
Yeah, so great. And so her podcast, her family, her older sister was investigated for Munchausen. And that's what started her journey of exploring that and other stories in that realm. And if you want to hear more about her experience, which I'm sure you will after hearing her like talk about it,
you have to just go listen to her podcast.
You got to go listen.
If you like the Dating Detectives, you're going to love her podcast. It is really, really good, you guys. And you're going to be like, yeah, nobody should believe you because this is batshit. Like, this is crazy.
Yes. Truly. And some of the stuff in the story today, I felt like that, where it's just like, how does somebody do this? She also is just so the perfect mix of like, she gets so much good information, and she's so, just like she treated our guest with such kindness, having gone through something somewhat similar. Not exactly, but I mean, there's so many stories.
She also asks really hard questions, but she was getting to the meat and potatoes. Like, I need more information. I love her for that.
Oh, yeah. And afterwards, I just told Mackenzie before, I was texting her, I was DMing her, like, I have more questions. Like, I want to hear more. She's just so interesting. So I can't wait for everybody to meet her.
And, speaking of interesting, you guys, you have to join the Patreon. Listen, okay, we have some Patreon episodes where we're talking about someone who dated a vampire. We're talking about someone who got catfished by a celebrity. Like, you have to join. The Patreon's only $5 a month and you get 2 bonus episodes, but you have to go listen to these episodes. Like, they are also bonkers.
And in case you missed it, she did just say dating a vampire. That deserves an echo. Because what the fuck?
Vampire, like, I want to suck your blood. Okay, anyways, like this is Dracula. 1, 2, That's what it reminds. I'm such an idiot. Okay, let's go.
I loved it.
Anyways, let's get into it. I'm ready to hear from a little bit more from Andrea. Let's do it.
Hello. We have a full house today.
This is a lot more voices than you guys are used to hearing. Sorry.
Well, let's go through it. I'm Hannah from the Dating Detectives.
I'm Mackenzie. I'm a private investigator. You guys know, the host of the Dating Detectives, along with Hannah.
Woo. And I am Andrea Dunlop. I am the host and creator of the podcast Nobody Should Believe Me. And the reason I'm here today will soon be revealed as you listen to this story.
And I am like beside myself that you're here, by the way, just FYI.
Oh my gosh, me too. Are we just all going to fangirl at each other for a minute?
Yes.
Just parasocial ourselves right into our screens. It. Yes, we're all fans. I love Dating Detectives. I am a regular listener. I enjoy it. I learn things from it.
This is beyond, you guys. So cool.
Y'all,
thank you for being here.
If you don't know, Nobody Should Believe Me. I think a lot of people do, but they need to. Oh
my goodness. Well, I feel the same way about Dating Detectives. You guys are the perfect mix of having a lot of fun on a true crime show while still centering survivors and being ethical and responsible with your content. And it just proves you can do both. You don't have to be, I wouldn't say we have like a tremendous amount of fun on my show. I love making my show, but it's not exactly like, woo, come along for a wild, fun ride. So it's exciting to be here with you today. I think you guys strike a great balance with that.
Thank you so much for that compliment. That's such a nice compliment. Thank you.
We laugh to cope.
Yeah. I think it's, there is like a fair amount of gallows humor when you're dealing with this stuff all the time. And I think you can still do that while being, respectful, especially to the folks that are brave enough to share their stories. So I think that it's all good. It can be done. It doesn't have to be one or the other. So
nice.
And also you guys are going to meet our guest. Her name is Mila. Mila, can you introduce yourself?
Yes. Hello, I am Mila, and this is my story.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. We're ready to hear it, girl. Take us away, will you?
Where do we start? I met a friend in college. So I guess if I just start from the beginning, I met her through my brother. They went to college together, and I'm gay. She's gay. We're attracted to each other, but she was in a relationship. So I respected boundaries and we were friends. Eventually, she breaks up with her girlfriend and we get together. Somewhere between meeting and getting together, she drops the bomb that she has brain cancer. And I just thought, how would I want somebody to respond in this situation? And so I told her, whatever it is, I'm here for you. We're friends. I'll support you.
Mila, how did she tell you that she had brain cancer?
The first time, well, she mentioned it. We were going to a picnic downtown and just driving along the highway, she just casually says, oh, by the way, I have brain cancer. And
crazy.
I don't know how to react. I tell her that I'm supportive, whatever she needs. And at that time, I had not noticed any symptoms, but following that, yes, symptoms started to show.
What was her prognosis when she told you this?
At this point, they had a good prognosis for her. They said that her chances were very high. They weren't super concerned about it. Obviously, she needed to start treatment, but they thought that she would make it. And to mention, up to this point, this was her fourth tumor in her whole life. So this was a repetitive thing. She kept developing brain tumors. And this one, they thought they were going to heal.
So at what point did you two become romantically involved?
It was probably within about 2 months of when we initially met. Her and her girlfriend broke up. Her girlfriend's from Iceland and she moved back to Iceland. And so they broke up and we got together.
And how was your relationship with each other outside of the cancer situation?
Outside of her being sick. It was good. Being with her felt natural. It was my first intimate relationship with a woman. I'd known since I was 12 that I was gay, but I hadn't really been around people that were also gay. So I hadn't had the opportunity yet. So it just felt, it's probably the most me I had felt
That's
ever.
huge. Your first.
Being with the right person. Yeah, being with somebody that I felt I could trust. She was goofy and passionate and she just liked to have fun. And I'm much more of a serious person. So for her to have sort of balanced me out in that way was really refreshing. And I don't know, we just went together. So, we just kept hanging out. We kept spending time together. And then she had told me that during treatment, the tumor we were currently dealing with had shrunk small enough that they were no longer overly concerned. So that was a huge relief. And we found this out because my mom and I had invited her to dinner. And so we're at the restaurant eating. And she says she needs to step away. She has a phone call. So she steps away, comes back, and she's all smiles and excited. And she says that was her doctor. And they just called to tell her that she's in the clear. So we spent the night celebrating
Cancer's gone.
and high-fiving.
Wow.
That's like a movie.
And if she's having dinner with your mom, that must mean that you guys were pretty serious.
Yeah. My whole family knew about her situation. They knew that we were together. They had no issues. They were all very supportive, and they were supportive of her. They were there for her.
What about her family? Like, were you meeting her family? Were you talking to them? What was the interaction with them like?
I never met her family. She did not talk to them much because they were very against the fact that she was gay. And so she tried to not involve them in much. Her family didn't know
That she was gay or that she had cancer?
that she had cancer.
Oh,
What?
She knew that if she told her parents, they would pull her out of school. And she really didn't want that. So she was trying to handle everything on her own.
That was the reasoning she gave you. Where are you guys living during this? Are you living in the same place? Or
Yeah,
you're
like
living
how far
in...
apart?
Yeah, how far?
So this takes place over the summer. So she is juggling between the town that she goes to college in and the town that her parents live in, which are like 3 hours apart. So she's either, if it's the weekends, she's at her parents working for them. And during the week, she kind of stays in the college town. I live in neither. I live about an hour and a half from her college town and 4 hours from where her parents live.
Long distance. Okay.
So she's not estranged from her family. She's just doesn't want to... She's telling you she just doesn't want to share this specific information because she's worried they'll make her quit school and she wants to carry on with school.
Right.
Okay.
And also, if I was dating someone and they were like, and my family doesn't accept me, I would be like, okay, no questions asked. Like, you don't want a relationship with them or you don't want to tell them stuff. I get it. Like,
right.
Yeah.
There's a lot of precedent there for
Yeah.
people in queer relationships. Right.
Yeah. I mean, that's the whole thing about the story, though. If somebody tells you they have cancer, you don't say,
what?
Do you really, though?
Word to the wise. Yeah, that's probably not the best initial response.
right.
Sometimes after I listen back to our episodes, I need a very happy, romantic palate cleanser. And I've been going to Galatea, the app that is normalizing smut, because this year that's what we're here to do. Okay. If you're a diehard romance reader, you've probably already seen some of the stories that are wild from the Galatea app. It's all over Book Talk or Bookstagram or Book X. What other social medias talk about books? Book Threads. Unlike some of the big names in publishing, Galatea and its huge roster of female indie authors are here exclusively to help primarily women and anyone that's into smutty explore their fantasies in the safety of fiction. So it's basically like an audiobook app, but it's all smut. It is great. I loved it. I truly was like, I didn't even know where to start. There's any fantasy, any scenario you could want, you've got a book for it. And if you want to listen to it, they have audiobook option, but you can also read the text. And it's a subscription. It gets you truly unlimited access to as many steamy stories as you want, literally. So you can honestly start reading for free. If you visit our link, galatea.com/TDD, you get a sneak peek of one of their current book talk sensations. I started, and I'm now further than last time we talked about Galatea. It was called 3, the Perfect Number. And it's about a girl who just comes home from college, and her brother's friends, who are twins, who she grew up with, all of a sudden, they're hot and they're flirting. And she's like, which twin will I pick? And I still don't know which one she's going to pick. But it's so spicy and sexy. And there's all the tropes: enemies to lovers, friends to lovers, a little fantasy. It's just really fun. And I think we deserve to lean into that side of ourselves that just want to explore the funny, smutty side of romance and sex. And there is absolutely no shame. In fact, the opposite. Smut is here. 2024 is the year of smut, and so is every year after. It is also worth mentioning that if time is of the essence and you're not looking for a book, they also have erotic one-shots, they call them. They get you hot and bothered in the span of 2 chapters. So versatile. So you got to try it. Galatea, it's a whole new world. If you want to start reading on this one-stop romance app and discover some of the juicy bits I could not say on air, then go to galatea.com/TDD. That's GALATEA.com/TDD to start reading now. You don't even have to download, but you probably will.
You guys, as you know, I'm a private investigator, and I am here to tell you how much of your personal information is on the worldwide internet. So
Dun,
if
dun,
you,
dun.
yeah, let's talk about why your privacy matters. Okay, so first of all, obviously, there are people with not great intentions. If you listen to our show, you know this. And they could use the internet to get your information. We're basically easy targets, but we can protect ourselves, and you can get peace of mind with Delete Me. So Delete Me basically finds and removes any personal information you don't want online, and it makes sure that it stays off. So it's a subscription service that removes the info from the largest people search databases on the web, and in the process helps prevent all kinds of things: harassment, potential ID theft, doxing, phishing scams, all those things.
It works for you as you go. So it's a subscription. So you check in and it gives you a report, and it's working for you, so you don't have to worry on an ongoing basis.
It's very common for someone to be really naive about the information that's out there. I'm talking not only your name, but your contact info, your social security number, your home address, information about your family members. All of that gets compiled by data brokers, and it's openly sold online. So when you go online and you're like, let me look up this person, whatever their name is, and then it gives you a whole bunch of information and says pay $2.99 to get more. That's because that information is being sold by data brokers, and anyone can get that for like a small fee or whatever. So with Delete Me, it basically removes that information from those search engines. It helps you keep your door locked to your privacy and your information safe. So what you do is you sign up, you provide Delete Me with exactly what information you want deleted, and their experts take it from there. And then they send you a regular personalized privacy report showing the info that they found, where they found it, and what they removed. So you can get that peace of mind knowing exactly what they did for you and how they're helping you, which is really, really nice. So it does all the hard work, and you can feel safe and a little bit more protected. Take control of your data and keep your private life private by signing up for Delete Me, now at a special discount for our listeners. Today, get 20% off your Delete Me plan when you go to joindeleteme.com/TDD and use promo code TDD at checkout. The only way to get 20% off is go to joindeleteme.com/TDD and enter code TDD at checkout. That's joindeleteme.com/TDD and use code TDD.
So she gets a clear prognosis. Like at some point, like she gets that call, you're at dinner, the cancer is gone. So you're so relieved. And then, I mean, has she still been mostly appearing healthy throughout that time? Or were you starting to see some symptoms even throughout that time?
At this point, she's still mostly fine. It's after she's given the all clear. We have about a month or two before she gets diagnosed with her 5th and final brain tumor. This one is terminal, and it's called a GBM, glioblastoma multiforme. This is, odds are, terminal. That's her chances. It's one of the most aggressive forms of brain cancer.
Man.
And I was devastated. She actually told me in person, and I sobbed uncontrollably. I absolutely lost my shit. And she was very matter of fact about it, as if she had come to terms with it. She accepted it. This was going to be her fate, always having brain tumors, I guess. And I didn't know how to cope. So when we found that out, then things started to spiral. She was throwing up from chemo and radiation. Her hair was falling out. She'd have bruises and wounds on her arms where the IVs were, or, her stuff for her chemo. So at this point, now that she's back in chemo and radiation, it's very aggressive treatment. She's sick all the time. I am either commuting back and forth to her college town to take care of her after treatment, or she's getting treatment in my city.
And do you take her to treatment ever?
No, she won't let me.
Okay.
But she was visibly she was sick. Like all the things. Okay.
Yes. She was, I held her hair while she threw up. I saw her hair falling out. It was the whole thing.
What are you doing at this time? You're still in school at this time. I mean, that's really intense to be that young and take on the role of like someone's full-on caregiver.
Right. So I'm in community college at the time in my town, and I'm running my mom's company.
Oh my.
So
Wow.
I'm juggling between working full time, going to school, and commuting back and forth to take care of her. My professors knew, everybody knew about it. They knew that I might have to pick up and leave or take a test at a later date, and they were all very accommodating. But once it became terminal and we got to this level of care that was needed that I couldn't provide on my own without support, 'cause no one else knew.
So sorry. So even at that point, she was saying that she was not telling her family. She was not telling other people. And so even besides her parents, she was just not telling anyone else in her
Just
life.
you, literally just you.
Me and my family.
What was her reasoning for that?
Her biggest thing was that she didn't want other people to feel like they needed to step up and take care of her.
Just you, huh? Yeah.
So
just all
yeah,
you,
right.
just 100%
Just me.
you. Oh boy.
So we actually break up at this time because I can't handle being present for her as a caretaker, as a lover, and everything else in between that I'm doing. So she still means
Well, that's a lot.
the world to me. And I let her know, this doesn't mean that I don't care about you, but I need to take something off my plate. If we could just go back to best friends for now, that would be really helpful for me. And she was supportive of that. She understood that I might have bitten off more than I could chew at this point. So she's going to treatments. She's texting me saying, hey, I'm coming into the city. I have treatment and I'll be done in about 30 minutes. Do you want to get together, hang out, or I can spend the night at your place? And, we would just figure out how we could be together after her treatment. And I guess I should also mention that her oncologist is her ex-girlfriend's mom.
I'm sorry, what?
The one from Iceland?
What?
Is the oncologist in Iceland as well? No, right? The oncologist is here in the United States.
The oncologist is here, living in my city.
Oh boy.
And they are from Iceland, but she practices here. And her daughter moved back to Iceland after they broke up. And I mentioned this because the doctor would communicate with me.
Wait, what?
as well,
Really?
Which now I know is not a thing.
Yeah, I was like, wait, what?
It's not a thing
Yeah, at the time.
because you'd only listen to.
HIPAA.
Because I'm not family.
Okay.
Well, I suppose you can give someone permission. It's usually either a spouse or a family member. But I mean, I suppose there is some context here for if you're in a queer relationship and you're on the outs with your family, which we question mark whether she was completely that or not, right? You might put a girlfriend or close friend as your point of contact for a medical person, right?
Sure.
There's circumstances under which that's
Yeah, I'm
plausible.
curious.
It's unusual.
It doesn't sound crazy, but this,
Right.
I mean,
Especially if you are someone, this is a patient that this doctor knows personally. Not that that's right, but
Right. But I think you
I
can
don't know.
authorize. I mean, I'm just thinking about like the forms you fill out when you go to the doctor, like I put my
Yeah.
husband there, obviously, but like it seems that you could authorize someone else. And, that whole concept of like even chosen family for people in queer relationships, right? That other people might be filling those roles if you have a strained relationship with your family. But yeah, it seems unusual.
it's a good question.
So I was put on the medical release form as somebody that they should contact if anything were to happen, or if they have to execute her DNR or any other situation where I would need to be notified.
Well, that's intense.
You're 20. Okay. Yikes.
So it's a lot. And I'm basically her caretaker. So after her treatment, if she didn't stay in my city, I would go to her college town and stay with her and take care of her through all the side effects of the chemo and radiation.
So she was really sick during this time, sounds like. And
She was very sick.
yeah. So what was had they given her a prognosis in terms of like how long she had?
She had a couple months. It's inoperable because the tumor is behind the eye, so they can't get to it. So the treatment was really just to give her as much extra time as they could. She was never going to be cancer free.
Wow.
that's awful.
And just emotionally for you, like, I mean, that must have taken a huge toll on you, just regardless of whether or not she's your like official girlfriend or whatever, you're still really invested. And I mean, just caretaking on that level takes a huge toll.
I mean, you're hospice, essentially.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was exhausted. I was overwhelmed. But I also didn't feel it was right to leave somebody you care about in a time of need. And especially being one of the few people that knows.
Yeah, you have no choice. You
What am I
basically
going to do?
Of course.
Yeah, I'm stuck.
Did you know other friends of hers, or did you
anyone?
Yeah, were you guys mostly hanging out one-on-one or with your family, or were there other people around in this scenario?
I knew her whole friend group. She lived with her roommate / best friend in her college town, and they would have parties and people would come over and we'd all hang out if she was feeling well enough.
So they know she's sick.
No.
Oh, they don't know she's sick. What did they think when her hair falls out?
Nobody knows.
That she was
but it's not happening in front of other people. She's not brushing her hair or pulling on her hair in front of other people. So, they don't walk around in chunks or just.
Okay, so it wasn't like huge bald patches. It was like you would be with her and she'd pull out.
It would come out.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then you're seeing her vomit, and she has IV bruises on her arms and stuff like that. So sort of visible to you because you're this intimate person, but maybe not a blaring red signal to other people that she's sick. Okay.
Yeah.
And I mean, did you ever sort of press her on, maybe you should tell your roommate, maybe you should tell, that's to have the idea of you being this singular person that's carrying this burden and being the person the doctor is going to call to enforce a DNR.
Yeah.
That's so much to put on a person that's not even, I would think the roommate would be the natural sort of contact. They're with her all the time, yeah. If she's really that sick, and if she's going to die in 2 months, that's something that you would want to tell people in your life, presumably. Did you have those conversations with her where you pressed her? Did you just feel she's so sick and it's such a crisis, I really can't press her on any of this, and I just don't feel entitled to press her on this?
I did bring it up several times, and with increasing severity each time, first time, we need to talk about this. We need to tell somebody else. I need to know that somebody can be there for you. Then it goes to, I am serious. You need to tell your roommate because she's the only one that's where you're at 90% of the time. And she told me that she would tell her once I left. I know, my parents know, her ex-girlfriend knows. Her ex-girlfriend texts me constantly to check up on her, how's she doing, all of this stuff. The doctors are texting me. They are updating me when treatment doesn't go well and they have to admit her to the hospital and all of this stuff. So I do have people that are
Do
involved,
doctors text?
but I don't.
Sometimes.
That is a thing?
Again, I don't know that. Yeah, that sounds a little unusual. I don't know if they never text, but
Well, let's back up. I will tell you.
I know they know how to text, but you know what I mean.
I was just sitting here trying to think if
doctors
I've ever gotten
figure
a
out a
text from,
phone?
doctors have cell
Yeah, I
phones.
can't think of a time where I guess they have their little telehealth systems.
Right.
So-
I guess that's what sometimes those come through text, but it wouldn't be usually they use the secure portals and stuff to message. So you're just getting regular old text messages from an oncologist that's hey, this is how she's doing. This is blah, blah, blah.
Right. So these are the things that are raising red flags for me. And I will read you one of the texts from the doctor.
Oh, yes, please. She comes with receipts. I love it.
She got the receipts.
So, hi, Mila. This is Dr. Aquino. Nora is also in psychiatric care for suicidal thoughts. Right now, she is under our high risk watch, which means her personal belongings have been taken. That's why I am talking to you instead of her. She is in restraints and she is being monitored at all times. The good news is she came in for help, which is a good sign. Her emergency contacts and power of attorney have been contacted. Dr. Scott, this is her oncologist, will be arriving for work by 5 anyways, so she will be here as well. Her parents are on their way, but they will not be allowed to see her at this point until her condition medically becomes more stable. The goal after we get her to calm down and talk normally is to release her into the care of her parents. The best thing for her will to be around friends or family. In her case, I will suggest her being taken to her college town to be around friends rather than family. Unfortunately, suicide and suicidal thoughts are fairly common with terminally ill patients, especially those with neurological problems. They start to lose control, so they have the desire to end things on their own terms. Again, it is technically very illegal for me to share this information, but we all know you are very important to her, so we will keep you updated. She will be able to have her belongings back when she becomes more mentally stable. Please keep in mind that this is normal and does not mean she'll be this depressed the rest of her life. Nora is very special and we all care about her very much. We will take good care of her. I think Nora is an incredible person and she will make it through this tough night. Let me know if you have any further concerns.
I have so many concerns.
Wait, so this is illegal. She's saying this is technically very illegal. So we are talking HIPAA violations now that this doctor is doing, plus quite a lot of commentary there on the end.
In writing.
Oh my God. Yeah, in writing. Very easy to. Wow. What did you think so this is a text message you're getting cold, right? From a number you don't know. And this is not a doctor that you've previously been in contact with. So you're just getting this message like, boom. Did you know that she was at the hospital when you got this message, or this is how you learned that she was in psychiatric inpatient, allegedly?
I don't remember on this specific text. There's multiples, but I don't remember specifically on this one. I do know that at one point she was having intense pain behind her eye where the tumor is located. And she kept talking about gouging it out because they can't take it out. And she just wanted to be done with the pain. So she wanted to stab something in her eye to pull it out or gouge it out. And she ended up going to the emergency room often because of the pain. So she would go for pain treatment or pain management. And it usually happens when she was staying at my place, and I would wake up and she would be standing over me, staring at me. And I would say, Nora, what the fuck are you doing? And she'd say, I'm in a lot of pain. I didn't want to wake you, but I need to go to the ER. And I'd offer to take her, and she'd tell me she doesn't want me to see her this way. So she'd take herself. And then she'd end up in a psychiatric unit or something else for suicidal thoughts.
And then someone else would let you know.
I would get either a text from her ex-girlfriend letting me know that she was back in a mental hospital, or a doctor.
Did it make you uncomfortable that her ex-girlfriend was communicating with you, or was that okay?
I was fine with it because from what I understood, they were very close and they were together for a long time.
And she's like dying.
And they didn't break up on that.
And she's dying. Yes, that's a good point.
And at this point, you're not romantically involved with Nora. You're still obviously really intimate because she's standing over you, watching you sleep, which is an alarming thing to do, and sort of almost doesn't, like, that piece of it doesn't quite add up, right? Because if she doesn't want to wake you up because she doesn't want you to, like, she doesn't want to wake you up, but because she doesn't want you to see her like this, but she's standing over you while you
waking
sleep
you up
until you wake up,
wake up
so that she can impart this information to you and then sort of refuse to let you go to the hospital with her, even though she's in such dire straits. And had you had any experience with, like, I mean, this is all just extremely intense stuff at any age to be dealing with. But I mean, so on top of the cancer stuff, you're dealing with someone who's having suicidal ideations, which is very scary. And that's
so
kind of one
hard.
of those things that, like, when you have someone that you know is in that situation, you're sort of worried about them all the time, right? Like, they're in the back, like, it's that background fear that you're going to get a phone call kind of all the time. I mean, that must have been so draining. And, like, had you ever had someone close to you go through suicidal ideations? Like, did you have any resources or ability or support on yourself to be able to deal with that situation? That's incredibly hard.
Yeah. So at this point, I have already been in 2 mental hospitals myself for suicide.
I'm sorry.
So it wasn't a big deal to me. I mean, it's a big deal, right? Suicide ever is a big deal.
You were familiar with it.
Somebody sharing this information with me, right? It wasn't overwhelming because I've been there. So I'm rolling with the punches. I've gone through treatment. I want to help you. I have tools in my back pocket we could try.
Yeah, you're like, okay, let's go. Let's get to work.
Yeah. And it just made sense that she would tell me, being somebody that had experienced it.
Was that an experience that you had talked to her about previously?
She knew. I'm very open with this just because I think it's very taboo. Society makes it very taboo. And so I'm open to talk about it. And so she knew.
How long have you two been involved at this point in the story? So you're getting these texts. She's having suicidal ideations. She's deteriorating. How long does this whole thing go on? How long have you guys been in touch at this point?
Right. So I think we're hitting about the 6-month mark right now. And she started having memory loss because of the growth of the tumor. So then I also became the person that was reminding her of things she was forgetting.
And what did that look like?
She would text me and she'd say, I have a note in my phone that says you're important to me, but I don't know why. I can't remember who you are.
Oh, so like dementia symptoms, essentially. Oh my God.
So it's not like forgetting appointments. It's forgetting Mila. It's forgetting.
Are these random pieces of amnesia? But then she'd be like, oh yeah, that's right. Hey girl, hey. Or was it just like 51st dates? You had to like remind her?
It was. I mean, I had to constantly remind her who I am, who her family is, things that are important to her.
Was there any part during that where she like messed up and you were like, wait, that's really weird? Or did you not? Like nothing.
She never messed up.
Okay. This episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. This year has gone by really, really quickly. We are already in June, and I'm just curious if any of you are proud of something that you've done so far this year, or if there's something that you still want to accomplish. For me personally, I feel like life goes really fast, and it's really important that we're celebrating the small wins along the way. I know that things can be really overwhelming sometimes, but really focusing on your wins can help you kind of focus a little bit more on the positive and less on the negative, make adjustments for your year. And I think therapy can really help you take stock of your progress and set achievable goals going forward. And that's why I love BetterHelp. I feel like therapy has really given me the tools and resources to help me focus more on the great things that I'm doing and the wonderful things in my life, rather than dwelling on all the negative things that are creating problems, or problems that I might think are problems but aren't really. I've really been enjoying therapy sessions with BetterHelp. I just feel like it's a great way to talk to someone who's unbiased about your life and really get those things out, and then also share the positive things. If you're thinking of starting therapy, definitely give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online. It's designed to be convenient, flexible, suited to your schedule, and you can talk to them about anything. These are licensed therapists. So you fill out a brief questionnaire, and they really do a great job matching you with someone that really just fits what you need specifically. So take a moment and visit betterhelp.com/TDD today and get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/TDD.
Okay, quick break because we got some sexy ads today. Let's talk about Dipsea, y'all. You know how much I love Dipsea. I have loved Dipsea since I was listening to a podcast years ago, and it was like, hey, there's this app that has amazing erotic audio stories, spicy audio stories, and they're made like by women for women. And I was like, don't mind if I do. Just a classic don't mind if I do situation. And sure enough, Dipsea did not disappoint. It has so many steamy, short, spicy audio stories. It brings scenarios to life with immersive soundscapes and realistic characters. And there's so many stories about truly anything: second chance romance, adventurous vacation flings, hot and heavy hookups, hooking up with the boss in a way that's like done well and consensually and all of that stuff. All those fantasies are explored in such a beautiful way, and they're short and they're easy. And if you want, you can like follow the stories. They release new stories all the time, so you're never going to get bored. There's certain characters that come back. You can have different points of view, whether they're talking directly to you or you're hearing two people talk to each other. It's very, very cool. So there's new content every week. It's between listening to your favorite stories again and again or finding something new. You're gonna love it. They also have an education kind of portion where you can listen to guided meditations or information about kink, about self-touch, about any topic that also contributes to this realm of wellness. And I think that's awesome. And it's done from such a positive place. It's a modern approach to romance through high quality and captivating audio fiction. And for listeners of the show, Dipsea's offering an extended 30-day free trial when you go to dipseastories.com/TDD. That's 30 days of full access for free when you go to DIPSEA.com/TDD. dipseastories.com/TDD. So spicy, so sexy. It's all in the show notes. And yeah, have fun.
So things they really start to get out of control. One night she leaves my house And she says that she's going to go home. And the next day, she's in Pensacola, Florida.
What's in Pensacola?
What state? Sorry, what state are you guys in during this time?
Texas.
Oh, so from Texas to Pensacola.
She
Okay.
drove to Florida.
12 hours?
Yeah. So she has a huge love for the ocean. So for whatever reason, she wanted to go to Pensacola, and she ended up in Pensacola. And at this point, she's telling me she doesn't remember why she went to
Well, they
Pensacola.
got the ocean in Texas. I'm not good at geometry,
Yeah.
but she got the ocean over there.
Geometry.
The Gulf Coast was not going to cut it. She needed ocean.
She forgot about that.
She needed Florida. She
She's
needed
like,
to see
we're
a
going
dolphin.
straight to the Atlantic.
Yeah.
So at the same time that I'm finding out she's in Pensacola, her ex-girlfriend texts me and says that Nora contacted her and was having a meltdown because she ended up in Pensacola and she doesn't know how she got
Oh,
there.
so the ex-girlfriend tells you
And-
not Nora. Nora's just calls Iceland to tell them that she's in Pensacola.
Oh,
And
bless it.
Iceland calls you. Okay. Perfect. Normal. Yeah.
Yeah. So then
Hannah, are you writing this diagram?
I love that you said that as I quietly pulled out my notepad knowing I needed backup. Mackenzie knows me so well. I always have to write a diagram.
She's got the red string just connecting on the
Exactly.
board.
I know,
Yeah.
like crazy
Board
person.
behind me, just pinpoint. Okay, sorry.
Okay, I got my notes.
So girlfriend flies back and brings her back to Texas.
Iceland to Pensacola, a long flight, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
Okay.
And at this point, I'm pissed. So I'm mad because I can get to you quicker than she can. Why didn't you call me? Now this is weird. Now I'm
The math ain't
questioning.
mathin'.
Like, okay,
The
this
math
is
ain't
this is going too far. This doesn't make sense to me. And I asked the ex-girlfriend, why did she call you? I'm here. I'm literally here in the same country. And she said that she didn't want to overwhelm me. Well, at this point, you've been overwhelming me.
She knew you 5 minutes and overwhelmed you. What, all of a sudden she has boundaries?
Has not been a concern up until this point, but just this was too much. The Pensacola was too much. So Trina from Iceland drives her back to Texas.
Yeah. And I go to her home.
So is Trina there? Is Trina there when you get there? Do you finally meet Iceland girlfriend?
I have never met Trina.
No.
So she flies from Iceland just to get this totally normal pattern of behavior down. So she drives from Iceland to
You can't drive
Pensacola.
from Iceland?
No, I'm sorry.
She don't know
She-
geography.
She takes a boat. She takes a boat from she takes a plane from Iceland to Pensacola, rents a car or takes her car, gets in Nora's car with Nora, drives Nora back to Texas, and then immediately, no further questions, flies back from Texas to Iceland, her mission having been completed at that point. That's the story.
I don't know.
But that's what we're assuming, right? Because Trina has disappeared. Trina is not on the scene.
I don't know where Trina went at this point, right?
Okay.
Trina is gone. So I go to her home and I tell her, because her best friend is home, they're roommates. I tell her, I need you to let her in on this because
You
I
have to
can't
tell
keep
her.
up. I need to know that there's somebody local that can take care of you if I can't make it. She told me that she would tell her once I had left. She told me this before. So I told her, absolutely not. I have to see you. Tell her. Because you've pulled this one before and she still doesn't know. So she goes into the kitchen. She tells her best friend, who collapses to the ground and sobs. And she gets on the ground with her and she holds her. And then once that's done, she walks back to her room. Nora does, back to where I am, and very eerily says, I think you should leave. And I said, I'm out.
Oh my
It's creepy.
God.
Everything about the way she said it to me was wrong.
Just off.
Immediately, all the alarms were going off.
I got chills. Hold on. I gotta get a sweater. I got chills.
Mackenzie needs to take a lap. I mean, yeah,
How did you feel?
did you just have like a feeling of, like you said, like it just felt wrong?
Or were you like betrayed? Like everything I've done for you.
No, I didn't feel betrayed. In my head, I knew that leaving was the right decision. I knew if I stayed, that something bad was going to happen. I could feel it. I could feel it in my loins that
We call that femtuition when you feel it in your loins.
Yeah.
Yes.
I had no idea what was going on. I thought maybe she's overwhelmed with the reaction
That's
from
what
her
I
best
would
friend
think.
and she wants to be alone.
Maybe she's angry at you that you made her tell her, or like, yeah, okay.
Yeah. So the way that she told me, I knew I needed to leave. And so I did. And I'm driving home an hour and a half back to my city. And I get a
Oh,
text.
boy.
And it says,
This is Dr. Iceland. Oh,
I
sorry.
haven't been.
This is Dr. Iceland.
No, it's Nora. It's Nora. I haven't been honest with you. I do not know if I am terminal. This seriously could be completely mental.
What? Oh! I'm sorry, what?
Whoa.
I said, what? And I told her my first thought is she's really realizing that this is terminal and maybe she's just
Denial.
going down some rabbit hole. Yeah. So I told her, don't do anything stupid. I'm coming back. I'm turning around. And she says, no. I'm serious. I don't know if I have brain cancer.
What?
I kept feeling sick and assumed the worst. And I said, you better be joking. Her response was, I was scared. And that is no excuse. But it was wrong of me to lie to you. And I know. So
Well,
I don't know how I have her mom's phone number, but I say, girl, you're losing it. I am calling your mom and telling her that you're unhinged. So I call her mom and I say, we need to talk about Nora's brain cancer. She's losing it. And she said, what cancer? Nora's never had cancer.
Never had it. Oh my God.
Okay. So
then what do you do?
Yeah, what happens next?
Honestly, at that exact moment, I called my mom because I had to pull over on the side of the highway because I'm distraught. I don't even know how to, like, it makes me want to cry right now. I don't know how to react. So I call my mom. She answers and I'm just screaming. I'm like, she lied to me. She lied to me. And she's like, you need to slow down and tell me what you're talking about. And I was like, it's all a lie. Like, I was just losing it. And I'm honestly thinking at this point, I'm probably going to end up back in the hospital because
man.
I immediately, it's 9 months of bullshit that have just hit me. I'm on the side of the highway. It's pitch black. I have nobody to support me or be there for me.
It's like the world's upside down. Everything you thought your whole life was.
Everything collapsed. Exactly. So
no.
I go home because what else am I going to do? I call her roommate because I'm concerned.
Yeah.
Nora is either very sick with cancer and unhinged or mentally sick and unhinged. Either way, I didn't think that her roommate was safe. So I called her and I told her the situation and I said, you need to leave. I need you to pack a bag. I need you to trust me and I need you to go stay somewhere else for the night. And she listens to me. She does.
And what did she tell you anything about that conversation that she just had with Nora? Did Nora actually?
Not that I can recall.
So do you know if Nora actually told her that she had cancer, or was that conversation just about?
Oh, I watched her tell her.
Okay, you did. Okay, so
so you know for sure she said, I've got cancer.
So that is what, that wasn't like, oh, your dog's dead. And it was just like a completely other conversation. Okay, so the roommate at this point had been pulled into the cancer lie.
No, yeah.
Ooh.
I watched her. I heard her say, I have terminal cancer.
And then literally like the next day you're turning around. Oh my God. Yeah. Okay. Ooh.
Oh God. Okay. So roommate leaves.
So I go home. I finished driving home. And I believe at this point I called Nora because I'm confused. And I asked her, are you serious? She says, yes, this is all made up. And I asked her why she does it. Why did you do this to me? And she said, I love you. I love the attention you gave me. And I didn't want to lose you. So I guess she thought that this would be the best way to keep me. And then I'm still in communication with her mom because obviously I've looped her in at this point. And so my mom gets involved.
The moms are coming. Yeah.
Well,
yeah, for sure. I would too. Yeah.
So my mom is talking to her mom and telling her, we're going for a restraining order. Your daughter is not allowed to come anywhere near mine. She didn't believe me that this had happened. So I took screenshots of our entire 9 months.
Nora's mom. Yeah. So that was my question. Like, what was Nora's mom's reaction to like, hey, your daughter's been pretending to have brain cancer for the last 9 months?
She was just confused on what I was talking about. So I told her I had proof. And I screenshotted our text messages for 9 months. And I sent her a whole file. And I mean, it included everything. She would talk shit about her parents because they didn't support her. I mean, it was raw. And I sent it to her mom, and her mom had to read all of that. And she let me know that she spoke to her and she's not to have any contact with me. Please don't ruin her life by getting a restraining order. So they put her in a hospital. They put her in a mental hospital. From what her mom tells me, she's admitted for 3 days and then released. And the doctor says that she was acting weird because her epilepsy medication, which she really is epileptic, was out of balance and making her act
Andrew's
funny.
face.
So yes, the epilepsy diagnosis, was that reported to you by Nora?
Yeah, but I helped her through a lot of her.
Oh, interesting. Did you witness her having seizures?
Yes, often.
Okay. Oh, okay.
And she was medicated. I saw the medication.
Okay.
So that is a for sure thing.
Is that a common fake?
Epilepsy, yes.
Okay.
I mean, almost ubiquitous in these cases. But I would say epilepsy and other disorders that involve seizures are almost ubiquitous in cases of either Munchausen or Munchausen by proxy. However, usually, and of course, always like the most confusing one of the most confusing things to sort out when you're in the aftermath of this is maybe she really does have epilepsy, right? Like, and that's a real condition. It doesn't mean that the rest of the things were real. And so you're trying to sort through, like, just because someone has one legitimate health condition doesn't mean they're not lying about the others, right? So it's totally possible that people legitimately have epilepsy. Usually in these cases, when someone is lying about epilepsy, what it will come down to is no one else has ever seen them have a seizure. Or when a person is saying, or like if it's a kid, they'll say, oh, she has these episodes. Like my child has these episodes that are seizures. And like seizures can have this huge range of symptoms.
It's a wide range, yeah.
So someone can be having a grand mal seizure. And that's what we think of like in the movies, like on the ground shaking. You know, if you've seen, I have had a friend that also had a seizure disorder, and I've seen one of those. It's very, very scary. But they can also manifest as like someone freezing or staring into space for a couple of seconds. So like I know because I have a kid that like kids kind of do that anyway. I mean, like there are like my 6-year-old, sometimes they'll be like, babe, Fiona, like, what are you doing? You know, so if I was saying like,
I do that anyway.
Yeah, I mean, of course, people do it, but like, especially little kids, right? Like they get kind of dreamy. And so like
Yeah.
a lot of times people will say like, oh, well, that's her seizure. But then they also describe when no one else is with her, I see my child having, you know, these huge epileptic fits and like, I have to take her in the emergency room. But if you actually saw her having, now that's not to say that the symptoms of a seizure could not be faked, but it seems like if you're seeing like real stuff, that would be harder to fake.
Now that you're saying that, I never saw her have a seizure in front of other people, only when I was around. And I knew she was epileptic before I knew she had brain cancer. So I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, and with the medication thing, you know, just to tell you again for like epilepsy in particular, and I think this is why there's just these conditions. And I always want to preface this by saying that like many, many people have these conditions really. And this is not to cast any doubt on like, you don't want to live in my brain where like when people say they have something, I go, do you? I mean, obviously most of the time if someone tells you they have epilepsy or brain cancer, they do. But, you know, with epilepsy, like people can easily get medications for it because they go in and they say, you know, I have this, these are my symptoms, this is what I'm having. They can hook you up to what's called, I think, an EEG, where they monitor your brain activity. If you happen to have a seizure while you're in the office, they can catch that and say, oh, this is a seizure, this is something else. But that's not necessarily going to happen while you're in the doctor's office, right? Seizures are not predictable.
Right.
So they will still give someone medication for a seizure if they are reporting that they're having seizures. So much of what doctors do is based on our symptoms, right? So like if you're going in and you're saying, I'm having these seizures, other people, you know, it's like, I fell on the floor, I had this, you describe your symptoms. Most people are not going to go and tell the doctor that so that they can get on seizure medication. However, if you're a person who engages in these behaviors, you do. So that's one of the things that I think like is so disorienting about being around someone like that. Maybe you are seeing seizures. Maybe you are seeing medication bottles that seem to correspond to their condition. And you're like, no, that's a real prescription bottle. You're right. It is a real prescription bottle. It's a real prescription from a real doctor, but it's for a fake thing. So it isn't like
you can't possibly know.
No, it's very, very hard to sort out. And I don't think in any cases I think, you know, this is my background with my sister. There are some things I definitely know she lied about. There's a whole other group of things where I'm like, I will never know. That could very easily be a lie. That could also be true. And it's just like question mark. And that's part of what this makes this so maddening. So sorry, just to take us back into the story.
You.
So she tells you, because also I think like this detail sounds very suspicious to me, that you would be checked out of a psych ward because you're having a strange reaction to your seizure medication.
And like a doctor at a psych ward is saying, you're acting really strange. Like, what was your first clue, fella?
Right.
Like, you know what I mean?
You're not going to boot somebody with a seizure disorder out of the psych ward because I mean, that would be a reason to keep someone inpatient, not a reason to send someone home.
Like you're familiar with what to do when something like that happens. Like you know
right,
what I mean? Like that's,
yeah, I mean, that just doesn't. And again, it could be that she really does have a seizure disorder, and that's not the real reason she was released from the psych ward, right? Like you never know which part's a lie. But so that's the story she gives you, is that she's having an off reaction to her epileptic medicine. And so they send her home from the psych ward.
Yes. They send her home, and that's the last I ever hear of her or anything.
That's it? That's it? That's it? That's all done? That's all?
Wait, so what about these other people you were corresponding about? What about like the doctors that you were talking to? What about Iceland girlfriend? Like, do you ever close the loop with any of these people? Like,
can we call her? What's the number?
Can you send Mackenzie? Yeah, I want Mackenzie to find them.
No, so they're burner phones.
Did the ex-girlfriend and her oncologist mom and these other doctors, did they exist and that wasn't really them? Or do they not exist at all? Or do you not know?
I have no idea.
And you didn't talk on the phone with Trina or these doctors. It's all text.
Just text. All just text.
Oh my gosh, I'm imagining Nora trying to do like an Icelandic accent, which I couldn't even tell you what it is.
But what about, can you call the roommate and be like, yo, have you heard anything? What's going on?
Yeah, do you have any further communication with the roommate, or this just kind of like, it's just a shut door?
I have her roommate on social media, but honestly, this is 10 years ago. It's not something I want to reopen. I do know that my brother saw her at a mutual friend's wedding not too long ago, and she is married and has a kid. She's married to a woman and has a kid.
Wow. Did she have any diseases? Or did she say she did?
Was she dead from brain cancer or no?
Dying?
I don't think that my brother really wanted to engage with her.
No, hell no, I wouldn't either.
The reason I ask is we've had one other case on the Dating Detectives that involved Munchausen's. Andrea obviously has experience. I remember in that one, she did look up long later that they were just like kind of moved on to the next person and did it again. And I don't know if that's...
Yeah, so I am very curious to know if I'm the only person. I feel like I am. I don't think she would have gotten married and had a kid if somebody thought she was terminally ill. And I'm pretty sure that she was extremely unhinged. And the terminal part of it was, I'm going to have to kill myself before she figures out that I'm lying. So I don't think that that's something feasible for her to continue in every relationship. But the most upsetting part for me is that there's no repercussion for her. Nothing happens to her. I have to live with it. I have to deal with this and unpack it. And she gets to go to a mental hospital for 3 days, get released, and go on with life.
And she's just out here all willy-nilly, just happy as a clam, and just, Lord bless it.
Do you know anything about Munchausen syndrome, also known as factitious disorder imposed on self? Is that something that you are familiar with?
Yes, I know a little bit about it.
So, of course, with the caveat that I am not a psychiatrist. I do have a lot of expertise in this subject, and it would be impossible to diagnose this based on, just the story, but it certainly sounds like it has all of the hallmarks. So, I mean, I will tell you some things from my experience, and this is also something I have personal experience with. My sister engaged in these behaviors before she had children, and then unfortunately, I believe it has also become Munchausen by proxy behaviors, which is when someone does these things to someone else.
Wow.
So I will tell you that I know exactly how you feel. I know what that betrayal feels like. I know how disorienting that is. That moment of revelation when she texts you and you're in the car, I remember that moment in my own life. And that was, for me, that was getting a call from my father. and being told that the pregnancy that my sister had just lost 6 months in, that I had talked to her every day while she was in the hospital, and I had mourned these 2 baby girls that were coming, and we had bought things for them, and I had felt them kick in her belly, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, that none of that had been real. And
Oh my
it
God.
broke my brain. It made me doubt myself in like this deep way that I just felt like, how could I possibly have bought into this thing? It was never real. Why would someone do this? I was so hurt. I was so betrayed. I did not end my relationship with my sister until many years later. So I still hung in there. It's very, very hard to explain how disorienting and hurtful that is unless you have been through something like it. So I just want to say to you, Mila, I'm so sorry that this happened to you. I think that this especially happens to people who are very caring and very empathetic. I think they're the most likely to get roped into this kind of behavior. And if you think you are the only person that she has done this to, you are not. And they do not stop this behavior. It is an incredibly compulsive behavior. There is no amount of consequences that could deter them from this behavior. That's like one of the things that we do know about it. So the idea that she is no longer engaging in this behavior is not plausible. I really feel for this person who ended up marrying her.
I feel like I should be relieved that it's not just me, but now I feel shitty for those.
Yeah,
Yeah,
well, of
I mean,
course.
it's an incredibly wide swath of destruction. And that's one of the things that always gets me about these cases, right? And what's really interesting is like, I think with these things, like obviously she told a lot of lies and they are compulsive lies. And also just to say this was something really important for me to understand as I was processing this. In my own life, they understand what they're doing, right? They're not suffering from delusions. They're not hypochondriacs. So this thing of like, I was really sick and I just thought it was brain cancer. She didn't. She understood that she was lying. She understood that she was pulling off a deceit. She was probably looking up symptoms. She was probably, like if she had epileptic medication, if she didn't really have epilepsy, that means she was engaging with it with her medical professionals too. So it's a really elaborate behavior and very involved, and it's deliberate and it's knowing, right? So it's not, there is a mental disorder underlying, but I think it's kind of more analogous to someone having a personality disorder than someone having like a mental illness that's causing them to be confused about reality. And also, it's interesting that she told you, I did this because I liked the attention that I got from you. That was honest, probably, right?
Kind
like
of
that is
scarily honest.
It's scarily
Yeah.
honest. And I found this is kind of true. The reason my podcast is called Nobody Should Believe Me is that something Hope Ybarra, who was the first perpetrator that I covered, also created an extremely elaborate 8-year-long cancer hoax that she convinced her entire community, all of her family. They had, she had her casket. She went with her mom to pick out her casket. I mean, just like incredibly elaborate, right? An interviewer was interviewing her from jail. She did time for abusing her kids. And he said, Hope, you've lied about everything else. Why should anyone believe you? And she said, you shouldn't. No one should believe me. And it's like, so Nora almost had that like analogous moment of honesty, right? Where you're like, why did you do this? And she said, I did it because I didn't want you to, like, I didn't want to lose you and I wanted your attention, right? And that was a very honest, I mean, like,
Yeah.
people like this, and like you said, like she wouldn't have needed to do any of that to get you in your life. You wanted to be in her life. You were attracted to her. You were into her. But like, I think the really sad thing about people who engage in these behaviors is this is like a maladaptive coping mechanism, right? It's a way to try and get their emotional needs met that is ultimately really destructive. And so as much as it seems like she went on and lived her life happily, like people who do these things do not go on to lead happy lives. They go on to lead incredibly chaotic and destructive lives. And that is really sad. And I do wish we had more awareness and like more treatment for people so that they could stop hurting other people to get what they need. But most of all, I'm just like, thank you so much for sharing your story. I do think it is like such an isolating, like highly stigmatized thing. And you're really brave for sharing this. I know it's a hard thing to talk about. You feel nuts and you feel kind of foolish. And like, I felt all of those things.
Yeah. I think the biggest impact for me is that especially following the situation, it was really hard to trust anybody because, she was pulling her hair out in front of me. She was forcing herself to throw up in front of me. She was self-inflicting wounds and showing them to me. She wrote me a death letter to read when she died. I cannot for the life of me find it, but it was a whole thing about like how much she cares about me and thanks for being there for me. And I was I was confused. I didn't know who to trust. I mean, it really, at 20, it really kind of just
You're so
unsettled
young. That was
everything.
going to be actually, that was literally my next question to you was following this. How do you trust anybody or anything when right in front of your eyes, like you seen it with your own eyes that she was physically going through this sickness, but it was all manifested by Munchausen's. So how do you, in your brain, like going forward, how do you trust anybody? What anybody tells you if you can't even believe your own eyes,
Yeah. I didn't trust anybody for a long time. I even went back to dating men because I thought women are just crazy. I can't do this. This is too much.
Is it something you feel like you've been able to process, or what has that sort of, it sounds like this happened a while ago now. Hopefully you weren't permanently consigned to dating men, which, well, I'm a straight woman. I know, fortunately I found a good one, but I know that's not the best option, especially if
as far as
I'm
trust
attracted to
goes.
women. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So I did go back to dating women. I am now married to my wife. She's amazing.
Yay!
Oh, yay.
That's so
Yay.
awesome.
But so I thought that I had dealt with all of this. And then the podcast reached out to me. And honestly, it's been really hard. I thought that I had dealt with everything, but I think I kind of just compartmentalized it and put it in a box.
Well, because the surface is clean, right? And then you don't realize that all of that underneath the rug, you lift up the rug and you're like, oh, there it all went. But on top, it's nice and clean. And I'm really grateful that you're sharing this with us because I think a lot more people than we realize are either have experienced this and don't get me wrong, like I, a time or two, have been like, I'm really sick. Like, can you bring me some soup? And really, I just want my husband's attention, right? But this is like on a whole different level of, mental that a lot of people can't grasp. So
and it does happen. And it's not your fault, obviously.
Yeah. Well, and Mackenzie, it's like, it's interesting that you say that where you're like, yeah, you are, we all engage in a little bit of light illness exaggeration from time to time, right? Or like, if you have kids, like they'll be like, I don't want to go to school today because I'm so sick.
Yeah.
It's like we all remember doing that when we were kids too, right? And I think like it's good and important when you're trying to understand why people do this to kind of like ground it in that behavior. Like people do treat you special when you're sick. And especially if you have something dramatic like terminal brain cancer, people show up for you, right? They give you all their attention and that does make you feel loved. Like I think we do kind of understand that emotional gratification that people get out of it. And that feels really, really bad to have someone exploit that. And
yes, the exploitation is the norm.
Yeah, use it against you. And I mean, I'm so sorry that you've been through that. And I went through that same process, like this happened now for me. I've been estranged from my sister for 14 years and it took me a good 8 or 9 to be able to write about it, think about it, talk about it. I just shoved it down for a long, long time because it's like I think your brain isn't ready to deal with it for a while. And when you start pulling on those threads of like, what does it mean about me that I got pulled into this and how to, especially like, Mila, as you're describing, but I saw it, right? You're like, I saw her puking. I saw her pulling out her hair. My sister shaved her head in college and said her hair was falling out. Like
God.
Like she looked pregnant during this time. I thought I felt baby's kick. She said, here, feel the baby kick. And I thought I feel the baby kick. I'm like, am I crazy? Like, am I suffering from delusions? Like, how did I get... You really question yourself. And then you just say like, oh, what is my judgment that bad? And I mean, it's interesting because even though mine didn't happen in the context of a romantic relationship, it really affected my romantic relationships for a long time because, again, that inability to trust. And you sort of get this like paranoia of, what if everything this person's telling me is a lie? And you're sort of always waiting for the other shoe to drop. And you're like, well, the last time, you felt safe, like to have someone violate your trust in that way and sort of take this really intangible thing. I think one of the things in particular with Munchausen situations, like Munchausen by proxy is a crime. So, theoretically there could be criminal consequences and family court consequences. There almost never are. So that certainly like you end up in the same situation. But I think especially with Munchausen cases, unless someone has defrauded someone out of a bunch of money, there's really no action you can take, right? So it doesn't feel like you can really get any justice for the harm that was done to you. And it can even be hard to articulate exactly how it harmed you because this isn't like an everyday experience. A lot of people do experience betrayal, but this is a really specific kind where someone has involved you in this fake world to such a degree that you like lived in that world with her for 9 months. And it's
like Truman Showy.
Yeah, it becomes a really like difficult period of, I've found that it's like, there are periods of my life with my sister that are very difficult to make sense of, because I remember being with her when she was pregnant. I now know that she wasn't pregnant, but it doesn't change my memory of the experience. So it's like, you remember being with Nora and supporting her when she was sick. You remember watching her have these symptoms. And the fact that that was a lie, just like it makes the memory not make sense. It's very disorienting.
Yeah, you can't undo it, right? I remember everything as truth.
Right.
And then it's basically, I have this one story, and then once that one stops, a new one starts of trying to unravel everything that I just went through.
I'm so sorry that happened to you.
In itself, it's more than just a story.
Well, I also want to tell you that, like, I know that, there's something that I talk about with the community of professionals that I work with a lot is just like how under-recognized a phenomenon this is, like because people who engage in these behaviors by and large do not get help. Like they don't seek out help. It's sort of like people who have narcissistic personality disorder, right? Like that's a thing that people have that's in the DSM and you can be diagnosed with it, but people don't get diagnosed with it because they don't think it's a problem. They're not going into a therapist and saying, hey, I think I have narcissistic personality disorder. So it's like, this isn't something that people usually want help with, right? They don't, because they can't acknowledge the behavior. There's like a lot of, sort of complex shame and all that kind of stuff in some cases. But it's also just like a behavior that they're sort of lying about everything. So they're not going to necessarily just be held accountable and completely admit what they've done. So it is really under-recognized. And I think also the people who end up getting taken advantage of, it's very isolating, and you tend to feel a lot of shame and sort of turn it internally where you're just like, oh, why am I why am I the sucker that got caught into this? Or like, how did I, especially if like you were talking to other people or you did fundraising for that person or whatever. It's just this huge blast zone of people gets caught in it and then like no one talks about it. So just you being here and being willing to like, rummage around in these old wounds. I know that's really hard. And like, also just to say, like, if you need any additional support, please feel free to reach out to me after this, because I can help, and we have support groups and all that kind of thing. So happy to like, if that's helpful or whatever, whatever you need. But it's really, I know there's going to be people who are listening to this and hear their own story and hear something analogous.
Absolutely.
And it really does help to feel less alone.
Thank you so much.
That sense of community. So Mila, just by sharing your story, you just keep on padding this sense of community, and it just creates this really safe place for other people who are experiencing these things. And you hear stories like this and you're like, no way, that doesn't really happen. And you just don't realize how many people it does impact. And you could be someone hears and they say, oh my gosh, like I didn't realize, or I didn't know, or oh my gosh, the same.
I'm not crazy.
Yeah. And like Andrea said, they feel less alone. So you sharing your story is just so brave and courageous. And we're really grateful for you. Thank you so, so much.
Well, thank you for having me.
Wow. Wow. I cannot wait to hear everybody's responses and questions. I had follow-up questions even after. So we did a bit of a dogfish debrief with Andrea there, which was so interesting. But I was thinking about this for days. I'm glad she mentioned, the difference between looking up stuff on WebMD and being like, I'm dying because I have a sore throat versus
that's me.
Actually,
that's me.
Yeah, right. It's all of us.
I have a cough or I have a tickle in my throat. You have throat cancer.
This is the end.
That's what WebMD says. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a different kind of nuts, and that's just us.
It's crazy.
But then also because you've had so many cases of people lying about health stuff for insurance and stuff. And that's it. I mean, that's bad. That's some kind of lying. I don't know. It's such a specific disorder that she rightfully talked about, how there's not a lot of treatment, not a lot of people even trying to seek treatment because they don't have any concept of what's going on, or I can't imagine. I just can't imagine.
Oh my God. I can't. I literally cannot even imagine.
Makes me want to go listen to a podcast that dives in. I wish there was one.
Seriously, you have to go listen to Nobody Should Believe Me podcast. It is really, really good.
Also, Mila was amazing. So sweet, so cute. And obviously just like a good, kind person who loved her girlfriend and wanted to take care of her, which is beautiful and so sad that it's taken advantage of. And I just felt for her because I could tell it was hard to tell the story.
Well, and also, I guess I feel like that must have been double hard because this is your first time in a same-sex relationship. That's different on its own. Like, that's new on its own. You're young, which is a whole nother ball of wax. Like, so you have your age, your experience or lack thereof. You have the first time you're in this same-sex relationship where it's like all of these things are kind of fighting against you, you know. Same sex is always a thing in its own. Then you have to fight off haters. And now you're young. You don't have the experience to really know much about relationships to begin with. And she had a lot. It was just a lot to deal with.
As all of these relationships do, it just adds layers to your future ability to trust people. Like next time.
Yes.
I mean, she's now in a happy relationship, which I love. But when she was getting back out there, if somebody she meets is like, my family doesn't accept me as a gay person, now she has a new level of distrust around that, which is, it's already such a huge thing to have to navigate in a relationship. And then on top of it, to just be like, well, do they, or do they just not talk to you because you're lying about your cancer? Like, I just hate it. I hate it. Also asked Andrea after we got off about whether this is restricted, like if you have Munchausen or Munchausen by proxy, is it restricted to lying in caretakey type situations, medical, obviously, anything to keep attention? And she was like, no, girl, these people are lying about literally anything and everything.
Yeah. Like everything, like literally everything.
She was like, infidelity a lot of times. She said there's a case she knows of where somebody was running for office in a city they didn't even live in.
Oh, yeah. What is that?
Well, I think back to that episode we talked about lying with the lying experts.
Oh, yeah. Big Liars, the authors of Big Liars.
But they talked about the concept of big liars. I wish there was treatment for liars. Like, but they are not going to go to a therapist. I don't know. Guys, if you're a dogfish, we're not judging you. We think you should go get help. That was a lie. I am judging them, and I'm sorry to lie. But
I think, well, okay.
I also want them to feel like they can change.
But if you're a dogfish, like if you're a liar, right? There is, I think, a world that people don't understand, including myself, because you just don't understand how someone could so easily lie to someone else. But that's a mental thing, right? Like if it satisfies something like mentally, that's, I mean, not a problem to them, but it's a problem to others because you're kind of messing with people's lives when you lie to them. You know what I mean? Like depending on how deep it is. So it's wild. It's interesting.
And it catches up with you. Like in this case, it caught up with her. I thought it was so interesting that once it caught up with her, she just came clean.
Yeah. What choice do you have?
And then what? You just move on and start again? Do it again? Like, it's really a wild, wild, wild life.
Anyways, go listen to Nobody Should Believe Me pod. If you're a podcaster, just put it on your list. My husband freaking walked in and distracted me. If you are a podcast listener and you want something to binge, go binge Nobody Should Believe Me.
Yeah. Man, I was so grateful she came on.
And don't forget to join the Patreon. It's only $5 a month. The link for the Patreon is in the show notes, you guys. Get on the Patreon. You have to hear this vampire story.
Yeah,
and the celebrity catfish story. You got to go listen. Like these are just go do it's $5 a month. Go and thank you to everybody who's already subscribed to the Patreon. You're the real MVPs. Like we love you so much.
We appreciate it.
Also, you guys, wherever you listen to your podcast, wherever you listen to the Dating Detectives, would you please leave us a kind review or like at least 5 stars or something? Your reviews, first of all, help us to kind of see, like it helps us to kind of gauge how we're doing and make sure we're doing a good job for you. And I mean, you can also join the Patreon and like connect with us
and let us know,
girl. Like, yeah, let us know. But those reviews are really helpful to other people who might be listening for a good podcast. And the more good reviews we get, then the more it kind of helps the show grow. So we would really appreciate your support in that way.
Thank you so much. We love you all. And we also would love your stories if you want to share your thoughts about existing stories or your own stories. We still have some DMs from the last two-parter that we haven't gotten back to, just so you know, because you guys were so vulnerable, and I'm so grateful that the episode meant something to so many of you. And we want to be like, intentional about our responses, just because so many of you said beautiful stories that were very vulnerable. So if we haven't responded to you, it's not because we don't care.
We love you so much. And thank you for your support and your kindness. And we just really appreciate it. So keep paying that kindness forward and sharing that positivity. And of course, as always, continue to trust your femtuition.